Good morning, everybody. This is the Spartan. It's Friday, September 22nd. Hope you're having a good start to your day. I'm going to mix things up a little bit today. I'm going to start off covering off the what was in the thumbnail, which is the Russian Black Sea Fleet headquarters being hit in Sevastopol yesterday. Then we'll cover off the Russian losses, and then have some, Russian on fire and some other very interesting news that's come out. Shouldn't be a super long one today, but there's some really sort of interesting things to cover off. So, to get started with, as many of you may know, there was multiple hits all across Crimea yesterday, and one of them was on the Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol. So this is basically the building. And as this post rightly points out, this is supposed to be the best protected building in all of Crimea. Sevastopol is the most protected area of Crimea, and this building, you'd think that housed its general staff would be the most protected building to basically work in or visit, and not the case. And it was a daytime hit too. So, got a few video clips to watch. So this is just after the strike. You can see there's still fire inside, and this looks to be it looks like to be an old, back when it was in Ukrainian hands. Looks to be some sort of a government, almost looks like a mini congressional building or something like that. But here we go. If you look very closely, you can see substantial flames a couple stories up in there. So the interior of the building is in deep trouble. I think that was the end of that clip. Yep. And here is, I think I have a better angle. No, I've got this one twice. But anyway, so here is the initial strike. You can see it's bright. It's not a nighttime strike. So that tells you a lot, right? So previously, when you're attacking some place that has substantial air defense that you're worried about, especially if you're using kamikaze drones and long distance surveillance drones and potentially cruise missiles that could be seen and tracked and that sort of thing, you would attack at night. So you get the cover of darkness, and it gives you a higher chance of success. This strike was in broad daylight, and this tells me that between the S-400s, S-300s, Pantsir systems, etc., that the Ukrainians have taken out, the Russians may not have a lot of air defense left, and the Ukrainians, whatever they're using, and this looks to be either a Neptune or a Storm Shadow Scalp, but whatever the Ukrainians are using, they're very confident it's going to get through no matter whether it's day or night. But you can see off in the distance, this camera is taking this video just after the first initial strike. You can see it's pretty large. And just like when you take out logistics, taking out the command and control of a Black Sea Fleet, then there's no, absolute confirmation of who was in the building or what happened, to them. But when you take out the command and control of a regional military power, for example, that can hurt their performance and competency very quickly. Yeah, I think this was the same one again. Looks like it was a little closer. I used, this is probably the same one, I think. I thought this one was clearer, but no, it's the same one. So there it is. And you can see the wide area there. I mean, to me, it definitely was the one initial strike for sure, but it's such a wide area. I don't know if it was just, such a large explosive that, it's spread out that wide, or if there was multiple strikes. It's very, very hard to tell. And of course, no one's going to confirm that. The Russians say they weren't hit, and the Ukrainians aren't going to tell you yet. In addition to the missile strike on the Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol, an explosion near a military unit in Bakosar Bakosarai is also reported. And there's the headquarters of the Black Sea fleet that was hit. And this is the NASA firms, which basically picks up fire, using satellite imagery. And again, I keep meaning to look it up, but it's something like 50 meters square for more than 5 minutes, I believe, for the fire. If not 15 minutes, I think it might be 15 minutes for the fire to show up, and then the firms, excuse me, so it's still a little sick from yesterday. The firm's satellite data will pick it up. So here you have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 different fires being picked up by firms in the Sevastopol area, which is means that there definitely were multiple strikes. And again, I know this is hard to keep track of, but at the same time, the Saki Air Base was hit. So overhead imagery reveals blasts and fire affected multiple aircraft at the Russian Naval Air Station at Belbek in occupied Crimea. Damage to Su-30 and Su-24 strike fighters is evidence, as well as damage to at least 2 other aircraft type undetermined. Dirt and debris littering the taxiway suggests that the focus of the attack was the same as Ukraine's August 22nd Saki airfield attack. Belbek airfield. Preliminary information indicates that the attack utilized short-range drones to target and overwhelm the air defense systems. Then Storm Shadow air-launched cruise missiles and modified Neptune ground attack surface-to-surface missiles were then used to prosecute the main attack. So the Neptune missile that the Ukrainians have modified was used to take out the Moskva, and it can actually reach from Odessa all the way into Sevastopol, we believe. It can also be modified to be launched from airframes, and obviously the Storm Shadow and Scalp are launched from an airframe. So basically, what we believe is the new Ukrainian strategy is flying in 30, 40, some reports were 40 drones, overwhelming the air defense system, getting them to waste their ammunition and clogging up the radar with multiple targets, and then using that sort of cover to bring in your strike missiles and hit what you want to hit. So this is at the Belbek Air Base. Note the dirt and debris on the taxiway over here. They believe that's a damaged Su-30, another damaged Su-30. There's an Su-24 that looks like it's in okay condition. It's got that swept wing look to it. There's the damaged aircraft. These are the berms around them, right, to protect them from, one explosion hitting multiple planes. No idea what that one is. This one looks the same as this one. So to me, they almost looks like an Su-30 with the tail damaged, but it's really hard to tell. Evidence of blast damage over here, evidence of blast and fire damage. So this may have been, there may have been planes that were parked on the runway here, and basically it was destroyed and dragged away already. Damaged equipment, possibly an air defense system like a Pantsir. Possible burned aircraft in the revetments. That's stuff, they didn't even point that one out. That one's, whatever that is definitely damaged. This has been damaged. There's a strike. Dirt and debris on the taxiway, possible overhead explosion. Something substantial hit there, and it looks like it hit that revetment, that one, and that one. Possible aircraft debris in the revetment. This, whatever was in here, was white. It looks like an Su-24, and it's just gone, but hard to tell. And another likely destroyed aircraft over there. So once these get confirmed, I really hope they show up on our sort of daily loss report. But it's a substantial strike on the Belbek Air Base. That's on the western area of Crimea. So you could easily make the case that there's 6+ planes that have been destroyed there. 30 million a pop. That's 180 million. More importantly, those are 6 less planes that can launch strikes against Ukraine. A year ago, Ukraine was averaging. I wanted to cover off the losses first, and we'll touch on that. So the losses over the last 24 hours: 480 men, 6 tanks, 8 armored personnel carriers, kind of average. 40 artillery pieces, which is crazy. That's the second day of 40 plus in a row. 4 MLRS, 8 UAVs, and 38 cruise missiles were shot down. The Russians are. The belief was that they were building up a lot of cruise missiles for large attacks, and while they're not dropping 100 in a day, there's definitely larger swarms of drone and cruise missile attacks coming from Russia as well. I think the Ukrainians knew this was coming. Here's a little bit of analysis. So a year ago, Ukraine was averaging 6 destroyed Russian artillery units per day. This month, it's 35 on average per day. That's over 1,000 they're going to hit. Yesterday was 40 today, or 41. Today was 40. And right when we're loading up on 155 millimeter cluster munitions. So this is the artillery losses per day. You know, like here is April 2023, May 2023, and you can just see this upward trajectory. And there is the 7-day moving average, this yellow line. So you can just see it's higher and higher and higher with these huge spikes up here. There's the maximum that it hit. So it was 45. So that looks like 45 was the record. Oh, 44. There it is. So 44 was the record. Clearly, like we've always been saying, is that there's an intentional tracking, targeting, and destruction of Russian artillery pieces, because Russian artillery is one of the great equalizers. As well trained as the Ukrainians are, their Western and domestic military equipment, etc. There's not a piece of equipment on the planet that can withstand a direct hit from a 155 millimeter shell. Right? So taking out artillery is taking out the great equalizer. In Russia burns, so this is literally daily. This is St. Petersburg. Something substantial is burning, and I don't even see any fire trucks or anything, so it looks like it's kind of uncontrolled at the moment. Unless they're on another side where we can't see them, but typically you're going to be upwind, and that is a very, very intense fire. It's something, not sure what that is. Did we get actually, let me just check to see if anybody... No one has geolocated or figured out what that is yet. So I wanted to show you guys this artillery piece you might be familiar with. This is the 2S7 Peon. This is the most powerful artillery piece on the battle space. The Ukrainians have a few, the Russians have a lot. It is gigantic, and it's got the longest distance at 47 kilometers. It's so large, and you can see it. One of the soldiers sits on the side of it. It looks like something out of Mad Max or whatever, and it's got this huge shovel on hydraulics that comes out to the back to support it, and then it lets off the shell is absolutely it's the largest shell on the battlefield as well. So I just kind of wanted to give you a close-up of what the Peon looks like, and then we'll move to here where this is the destruction of a Peon, a Russian Peon, by the Ukrainians. Look, these are the same picture. I literally didn't even plan that. So there's the strike, and so I'm going to back that up. I'm going to mute that. And I don't know what hit that. could have been a drone, but whatever it was, it basically it was pretty substantial, and it ignited the ammunition as well. You got secondaries going off. And one day I'll read Cyrillic. That's a drone unit asking for donations. Feel free to use that QR code. But there you go. So a nice little piece of artillery taken off the battlefield. And again, based on the Russians' accuracy, it's relatively indiscriminate these days, but it is 47 kilometers, so it kind of outdistances a lot of artillery pieces on the battlefild. In fact, all of the standard artillery without rocket assist. So this is the Shadow unit destroyed a Muron P surveillance complex with an FPV drone. So I do like these FPV drones because they basically have what is a shaped charge on them, and then they've got two metal sort of antennae that are sticking off the front. And what happens is when those antennae make contact with the target, they then touch each other. They complete the charge, and then they complete the circuit. And then that circuit sets off the charge at the right distance to allow the shaped charge to come out and hit the target. So you'll see what I mean. So there's the surveillance.
You can skip this intro. I have a low attention span. Don't worry about it.
So this is, the Russians put up these surveillance units on buildings, poles, towers, etc., basically to keep an eye on typically like border areas, that sort of thing. And then you can see these two metal antennae coming off of the drone, and there's not a completed circuit at the moment. And once they touch something, this metal will hit this metal. That'll complete the circuit, and then watch right there. You can see the drone buzzing around it, and then boom. Right, and you see the shaped charge come out of it, and no more surveillance. So it's kind of cool to see that operate like that. And obviously they're close enough for these drone operators to be using these types of drones, which has got to be terrifying for the Russians. Just a little follow up on yesterday's report that I put in our video about the Ukrainians crossing the Surovikin line in the south and basically getting heavier mechanized support across the anti-tank ditches and starting to approach Verbove from the west. So Ukrainian armored vehicles are operating beyond the final line of the Russian defensive layer that the Ukrainian forces in western Zaporizhzhia Oblast are currently penetrating. Although ISW is not yet prepared to assess Ukrainian forces have broken fully through this Russian defensive layer. The ISW doesn't have to, because we've seen visual evidence of the Ukrainians on the eastern side of the Surovikin line, or the western side of Verbove. Geolocated footage on September 21st, this is what we covered off yesterday, indicates Ukrainian forces attempted an advance towards Verbove. Russian claims and geolocated footage from September 21st indicate that Russian forces repelled the Ukrainian forces. The Ukrainians did take some losses. They cleared some mines. They took some losses. They probably caused some as well. Here's the area that we're talking about. This is Verbove right here. And that's an assess control map. Anyways, just a little icing on yesterday's cake. If you remember, yesterday I also reported that it's suspected that the Azerbaijanis in the Azerbaijan-Armenia one-day war, that the Azerbaijanis took out a Russian peacekeeping column and also eliminated the Russian Northern Fleet submarine commander. Well, in addition to that, and again, I do not know why this many, this many officers were in a peacekeeping convoy. But so the 4 Russian officers killed in the by the Azerbaijani forces yesterday after the car was shot included 1 captain, 1 lieutenant colonel, and 2 colonels. Reactions from Russians are obviously furious, recognizing that nothing is being done about this by the Russian leadership. Russians exhibiting the usual slave-like behavior despite being actually mad. So the Azerbaijanis attacked and killed senior officers of the Russian peacekeeping corps, knowing that they were Russian military personnel. For this, they detained the perpetrator, suspended someone, and apologized. It's as if some kind of domestic stabbing took place with the participation of the diaspora. Do you know where to shove your apologies? When the time comes, we will show you. So the Russians are mad because basically these are landlocked countries. They border Russia. Russian troops were specifically targeted by Azerbaijanis. The Azerbaijanis are allied with the Turks, and Russia has not responded in any way, shape, or form, which is interesting, right, to say the least. What was that? The moment of the arrival of a cruise missile in Sevastopol. Oh, let's actually.
And yeah, right above me there. I'm in the middle of Sevastopol right now. It's a bizarre scene. People are just swimming down there. People with kids, just enjoying the beautiful harbor. And above us, the anti-air missiles are exploding in the sky. Sevastopol is currently under attack.
I don't think there was any anti-aircraft missiles exploding in the sky. Anyways, that was interesting. Glad I checked on that. On this day, actually, I'll just read this for you first. On this day, in 1939, the German-Soviet victory parade took place in the Polish town of Brest-Litovsk. As allies, we celebrated liberating Poland from the Poles. This is from Darth Putin. He's a Russian. He's a troll of the Russians. He's fantastic. So this is what the Russians continue to forget intentionally, is that they teamed up, allied, and invaded Poland and split it in half. It's the German and the Russians shaking hands. Congratulations. We'll be seeing you. The European Commission is ready to approve the start of negotiations with Ukraine regarding EU membership. The European Commission is expected to recommend launching a years-long accession process next month, but it may insist on progress in some priority areas, including corruption, as interim steps. And Volodymyr Zelensky is all over the corruption side of things. That's his number one internal job, I think, is basically ensuring that they root out all corruption. So good to know that that's progressing, and the negotiations should start next month. Volodymyr Zelensky has been preparing Ukraine to accede to the EU for well over a year. This shows the political astuteness and just the quality and class of Zelensky. So he makes sure to thank the American people. He makes sure to thank both parties. He visited, like he did 9/11 visits. He just basically touches all the key points. And also ensures that some people are saying, some of the anti-Ukraine support voices are basically saying, support American jobs, not Ukrainian jobs or whatever. So he's basically making sure to point out that this joint defense military production pact is going to create American and Ukrainian jobs, not just Ukrainian. So this was a very important visit to Washington, D.C., new military aid package, long-term agreement on joint defense production. This historic step will create new industrial base and jobs for both of our nations. My day began on Capitol Hill with candid and extensive discussions, both chambers and parties. Right? He gives props to both, not just the ruling party. I sense trust, which fosters unity. Members of Congress asked direct questions, which was Kevin McCarthy, basically. And we need that vote on the next year's, aid package. of 24 billion. Members of Congress asked direct questions and received candid responses. Transparency is our top priority in our relations with the U.S. I also had important defense talks at the Pentagon. I thank Joe Biden, both parties and chambers of the U.S. Congress, and the entire American people for their support. So smart and astute. After that, President Zelensky and his wife, Olena, have left America and are now in Canada. Zelensky's first visit to Canada since Russia's full-scale invasion. It says Canada has a large Ukrainian population, so they're sure to get a warm welcome. Canada actually has the largest Ukrainian population outside of Ukraine, other than the the forcibly vacated Ukrainians that are staying in Poland and other countries. But permanent residents, the expats and diaspora, the largest population is in Canada. So that's why there's such such ties, bonds between the two countries. I wanted to point this out to you. So we've seen both the Ukrainians and the Russians using the Maxim machine gun. We make fun of the Russians because they claim to be the second most powerful military in the world. We applaud the Ukrainians for basically anything from a slingshot to an F-35 and anything in between that they can cobble together, learn how to use. So this is a Maxim machine gun. This is the first machine gun ever created. 1896 to present. This particular variant was made in 1910. We've seen a couple of those used in trenches in different places. A couple of captured by the Ukrainians, I recall as well. So it's kind of unique. It's cool. I mean, it's well built. Obviously, it's over 113 years old, and it's still in use. Why am I showing you a picture of a Maxim machine gun? Because the only thing better than one Maxim machine gun is 3. They have taken 3 Maxim machine guns, welded them all together on a rotating turret, and are using it as a potentially drone the drone system. Wait for it. This rock. Gotta love it. One more time. Come on. That's badass. Anyways, I thought you'd find that interesting. Very cool. Last up, or a couple things. So the photography, this almost has a Last Supper vibe to it. So this is basically Cossack. It says Cossack blood flows in our veins. The 112th Territorial Defense Brigade. This shows morale. The panoramic view of the camera is cool, and I don't know if they are purposely trying to copy a specific picture. If it's posed, I don't know. I just got a Last Supper vibe out of it. Everybody's doing something. It seems like either someone caught the perfect picture, or it's staged for the perfect picture. And look at that beast. But anyways, really, really cool, interesting photo. Anyways, I'd love to hear any comments on what you think. If you think it's staged, but staged or not, it's fantastic. Really, really good picture. I love seeing it. Along the same lines, I constantly hear when people visit the front lines, or they talk to, like Western reporters, etc., and they talk to people who visited the front lines, or who are actually from the front lines, and they ask them about the morale. They're constantly I mean, sometimes it seems like genuine concern. Sometimes it seems like they're looking for issues. The morale is fantastic. There you go. And last, I'll just show you basically. This is a 6-year-old girl. Her name is Marina. Last year, she lost her leg in a Russian attack on the Kherson region. She became the first child in Ukraine to receive a children's prosthesis, and she's learning how to ride her bike. Brave young girl. Anyways, that's it. Hope you have a great day. Slava Ukraini. Please like, subscribe, and share.